Hello everyone, so in this video, let us start building our third API. We had gone through and built our very first basic get and post API. So if you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend that you should first build and watch those videos. You have to keep coding along with me to get hands-on on how you can make your APIs because it is very important as a backend developer to know how to build APIs, how to understand these key terms, and it will also help you to make your very initial projects as well. So coming down to here, we have gone through and built our very first ping and a welcome API, a get API and a post API. Now we'll move forward to a little bit more complex as well as a very wide use of APIs, which is like the very like basic APIs, which are the CRUD APIs. By CRUD means that create, read, update, and delete APIs. So what is this create, read, update, and delete? So you can assume that there is a database. You have a user. Okay, so what we are trying to build here is that we are trying to store user data in some database. In this video or the subsequent videos, I will not be connecting to a database because my main focus is to build APIs, as well as our main focus of this particular series I'm building is some sort of a low level design of how you can build. In the actual interviews, you are not going to connect to the actual database and make those all schemas and tables, all of that. Nothing is there. You can directly make a small array and you can assume that that array is the database and store that here. So we will be doing the same thing as well. Don't worry, I will first putting all the code in one file, but then in the subsequent videos, we'll also try to break it down into different files and how the folder structure look like. So everything will be done in this particular series. In this video, we will start building our very first CRUD API, that is the create. That is how to create an entry of a user in a database. We will be storing that particular entry inside an array. That is only the just difference. So if you haven't first watched out the videos, how this whole thing initialized, I highly recommend that you should first watch out those first videos. In this video, what we have done is that we have to make a post API to post the user data inside an array. So again, to add a route, we will be using this particular syntax in which through the HTTP package, we are attaching a function call to a particular route, and the route name is add user, as you can see here. Now, whenever this particular route is, you can say hit, this particular add user handler function is called. Let us go down to the function. Everything is inside the same file. We had gone through the greeting and welcome handler. Now we are going through the add user handler. So whatever function that is called from this particular route has to have these two particular parameters as the input. The response writer, that is what is the response of this particular call, and the request that is coming towards this call by these two variables. Okay, these two parameters you can say. First of all, we have some very basic validations. Don't worry, we will have complex validations as well when we go down to different subsequent videos. But it is a very simple, you can say, validation that the call should be a post request, like it has the method as the post request. If it is not, return an error. If it is a post request, which means that in the body, we should be having user data. In the previous video, we understand that to take something from the body, we have to define out what is the structure of the body itself. So the body structure has to be defined inside a struct. So we are taking the user data. So we have initialized a user struct. So what you can see is the user struct has to have three values. For our use case, we have made it very much simple that the user has three values: an ID, a unique identifier for the user, so that every user has different. Okay, like it's just a roll number. You can just say that. So it's an ID. You have to also mention the same thing inside the JSON format, because this JSON means that what is the actual value, because everything is coming from the request in the form of JSON. So what is the key? The key value in the JSON has to be mentioned here. So we have an ID, we have the name of the user and the email. For just demo purposes, we are just taking these three fields as the keys in the JSON that is coming in the request of this particular HTTP, like you can say post call. So that is one thing. Now, as we have told you that this is the user, we have to make, you can say, user table. Whenever you are connected to a database, you will again make a user table with all these three columns. So that has to have these particular columns. So we have to also make a user table that we have told. So instead of like connecting to a database, we have created, you can say, an array of user. Name it this. So this is generally like an array of users, and we will store all these user information in this array. Okay. Now what we have done is that whenever a request came, it has to have a body because it's a post request. If it has a body, then what we'll do is that we will decode the JSON, which is a byte array. That is like the array, the information that is coming in the request. That will be a byte array that will decode in this user. So this is, as you can see, this is an array of user, but now here it's just a single user. Okay, so what we're doing is that because in a single post request, we will be only taking a single user value. So we will be taking a single user value and decoding it from the request body inside this new user variable. So this new user variable will be now, like you can say that we are decoding the JSON key value pairs inside the actual variable values. Now this variable will be storing these values. Okay, if there is any problem while decoding, we'll throw an error. So this is a proper error, you can say error handling for everything that we are doing. Okay, so now when we have all these three values, what our main thing is that whenever a user is created, our user will only have a name and email. Okay, the ID should be, you can say, automatically generated. Why? Because the user do not know, like so if everyone is trying to put like make started building their own IDs, then there can be multiple clash. Whenever you join a like school, you are given a roll number. You cannot decide my roll number will be one because everyone like decide their random roll number and there will be multiple clashes. So it's better that the ID or the roll number will be like according, like it's a sequence wise 1 2 3 4. Though it like in the actual world there will be more complex logic, we'll also use some, you can say, libraries also to generate these IDs. Don't worry, we'll go into a lot of details in the subsequent videos, but in this video our ID generation logic is very simple. Whatever is the length of the user array, okay, so user array is, let's say, 5 elements, so which means that it has 5 elements, so the next element ID should be the length plus 1. Okay, so what we have done is that this is the new user. So the new user ID we are storing as the length of the user array plus 1. So this is just a very simple thing that we are taking. So now we have decoded the user name and email here, and now we have also added for the same user the ID as well. So now the new user variable will be having all the three fields that we want. So now the user has to be added inside the array. So because we have the complete user, so we have to append the new user inside the users array that we have here. If it might be a database, then we'll call the database query to insert that particular entry, like this particular user inside the database. But if we don't, we will just append that user inside this user array. Now the user is entered inside the array, so our task is done. Now we have to just send a OK response or the same response with the ID to the front end. So we have to generate a response. So the response, what we can do is that we can take the same user and marshal it, which means that convert back it to the JSON array. As you can see that we have converted back, this response is a JSON, like you can, so sorry, a byte array that we have converted into a byte array, and this byte array will be now sent back to as a response to the you can say as a response. So what we have done is that we have converted this as a response JSON. Like this is like a response JSON, or we are writing it as a byte array, what you can say, and then we have to send it back to the, you can say, response. So W, because which is the response writer has a field that is w.write. This function will be taking this response JSON, which is a byte array, as an input that will be used to write to the response, and that is, we'll send it here. We can also send an OK status code, and we can also mention the content type as JSON. So these are some of the things that you have to write down while sending the response back. And if like there is some problem while doing things, you can also do a proper log handling, and that's it. You can just return as well in the end. And that is how. So the basic structure is that take the request, do some modifications, and then throw a proper response back via like when the complete like API call is completed, that whatever is your like it is a proper like it is done, not done, if it has some error or something like that. Okay, and at each point like you can say also handle the proper errors if, so that you can also get some proper output if anything goes wrong. Okay, so that is the complete thing. Let us now go over and like run this code and see what is the actual thing. So if you go here, what we have done is that we have gone to the add user, we can say route, in which it is the same localhost 8080 that we have started with the add user. Now we have to just add a name, that is, let's say, code explainer, and the email is abc@gmail.com. If I just send it, as you can see, it has created already an ID one, because the initial array has the like the total length of 0. So it will automatically first create an ID of 1 with a name and email. So let's say now another user comes, that is like code explainer 2. So now, as you can see, this is also added to the array with the ID 2, because now the initial array has already one element present, a user entry present, so that the next user will already have an ID, or like you can say a roll number, depending upon your like understanding. Like the ID will be unique, so it has to be unique thing, which is like a primary key in the actual database. So that has to be unique. So we will like in this particular logic that we are building, we are just taking the total length, because it already has one like you can say one user. So it will take the total length plus one. So it has one. So now it like the new ID for this particular user will be 2. So 2 and the name and the email. So now like you can do the same thing. If it is 4, then it is ID 3 and so on. So that is how you have completely made your very first CRUD API, that is to create a user inside a database. You can just say that is just how to create a user, to put an entry inside an array or a database through a simple post API. So if you still have any doubts, you can mention in the comment box. Stay tuned on this series. We'll go through and build a lot of APIs in this series. So I will see you in the next one. Till I keep coding, and bye.